Welcome back to another Academy Award winning episode of A Brief and Vulgar History of Assassin's Creed. It's the vagina jokes that really endear the critics. If you haven't already, please check out the previous videos, and apparently I'm supposed to ask you to like and subscribe up front. Seems weird, but sure, do those things, and I will make a special scrotum joke somewhere just for you. Let's get right into things, shall we? Here's some behind-the-scenes trivia for you. The rough draft for this segment of the video was written at my friend Wes's bachelor party. And if you think that sounds unusual, just wait, it gets weirder. Poor Wes was asleep at the time. I want you to imagine Ezio Auditore and Sonic the Hedgehog making a child. Imagine harder, in great detail. Now I want you to stop imagining terrifying historical bestiality for a moment so I can explain myself. Just like my last video, by following release order, I get the honor of starting off with a Nintendo DS title, Assassin's Creed II: Discovery. Unlike Altair's Chronicles, which counts as sexual assault if you give to someone who didn't ask for it though, I'd actually group Discovery in with other Nintendo DS spin-offs that are surprisingly good. This game was also playable on iOS a couple of months following release on the DS. I don't know if Gameloft learned from their mistakes, or if the lead programmers behind Altair's Chronicles were publicly executed to serve as a warning to the others, but the improvements here are dramatic. Instead of shaving down Ass Creed until it fit onto the DS, this game took the spirit of the franchise and built up a new system that accommodates the Nintendo DS's limitations. Discovery is a left and right side-scroller, instead of a more 3D environment. As you run, you build up momentum for your parkour, giving it a Sonic-style feel while in motion, while still feeling like a proper spin-off Ass Creed title. Sorry about the earlier mental image of Sonic butt-birthing Ezio Auditore's bastard child. It was mean of me to force the image of Ezio topping Sonic's submissive blue rear into your delicate brains. Besides, they share a voice actor, so it's really more masturbation than freaky manimal sex. Combat is still blocking with good timing for a counter kill, but in the new setup, the dynamic of potentially getting surrounded on either side gives it an interesting strategic gamble. Combat is just effective enough to get out of a tight spot, but is also limited enough to prioritize stealth or escaping when you can. Stealth, thankfully, has been as improved upon as the rest. Instead of just hoping you get to walk up behind a sleeping dude every now and again, Discovery gives hiding spots in areas where guards patrol back and forth, and you can stealth kill anyone who has not seen you. It's very simple, but it plays well. The design concepts are also far more grounded. While you might occasionally wonder why a building structure has small floors jutting out in random places, like 3 unexpected boners from a man in a trench coat, there's nothing implausible here, like boulders swinging around like nutsacks in a nursing home. You might also notice moments guards should probably have seen you, but due to the gameplay setup, have shortened lines of sight. It's not too glaring though, since it does keep the gameplay fair and balanced. The game also had several neat features on top. If your device supported a camera, you could take a picture of your own face, or butthole for that matter, which would appear on wanted posters throughout the game. A version of optional objectives, which wouldn't appear in the main series until Brotherhood, first arrive in this game, which is just as cool as it is garbage depending on the objective. Characters in the game can also be unlocked as playable skins, which is nice, although the Spanish assassins sadly lack any dope-ass robes and really just look like civilians, which is a missed opportunity, to be sure. To make up for my disappointment though, sometimes archers will have flaming arrows they shoot at you, which means you can get in close and impale a motherfucker on his own fire. This, in fact, never gets old. Assassin's Creed II: Discovery takes place in the year 1491, as part of that big-ass gap in time that randomly happened near the end of Ass Creed II, and in between the 2 DLC packs we will be discussing next. We start off with Ezio monologuing about who he is and where he is in his life.
My name is Ezio Auditore da Firenze. I am an assassin.
Or, by the sound of things, dollar store ripoff Ezio. After digging around Venice very briefly, thief assassin Antonio needs to speak with Ezio, and sadly his weird mustache gets lost without the graphical fidelity of a stronger console. Antonio and new assassin pal, Luis Santangel, have found out that Rodrigo Borgia wants Cristoforo Colombo dead. That's old Christopher Columbus, in case you couldn't tell. Abstergo canonically has a policy to have him referred to as Cristoforo Colombo for some confidential reason. I am not sure why. Now, Chris Columbus is a controversial figure, and I can tell why. His Harry Potter movies are just so much weaker than what Alfonso Cuarón did with Prisoner of Azkaban. Wait, sorry, wrong guy. Chris Columbus is controversial for enslaving and killing several Native Americans on his trip. That makes more sense. Discovery handles him in an interesting way, though. He's not really a Templar or an assassin, but still bumbles his way into being on a Templar hit list. Rodrigo Borgia wants him dead so he doesn't discover the numerous pieces of Eden scattered around North America. In fact, throughout the game, he continues stumbling into Templar traps, trying to get funding for his expedition, until the Spanish assassins and Queen Isabella agree to go halfsies on the bill so he'll stop trying to get murdered. Ezio begrudgingly saves Columbus. Before he's willing to leave Italy, though, he sends Ezio after his atlas showing the way to India across the Atlantic, which he hid on a public bookshelf. Ezio obliges, advises the men to buy condoms or something.
Gentlemen, if you return to Italia in the future, bring your own protection.
And casually finds out about the Spanish Inquisition from them. No, I will not make the joke you're expecting. If you expect it, it defeats the purpose of the joke. Ezio travels to Spain, and lo and behold, someone has branded a specific list of assassins as heretics to try and get them all crispy fried. It's Rodrigo Borgia. In the craziest twist in the series yet, the Spaniard has ongoing business with Spain. Borgia doesn't actually appear in person, so Ezio takes out several Spanish inquisitors, many of whom appear entirely unaware of the Templars at all. They legitimately believe they are burning these men as heretics. Due to taking place in the same time period as the feature film that came out a few years later, this game was originally going to be declared non-canon any longer, but after careful analysis, this game actually doesn't do anything that conflicts with the narrative of that movie. This is good for the game, as it gets to keep its legitimacy, but it's also a little bad for the game too. Here's why. Ezio, at the end of the game, reports back to his associates that he doesn't think Tommaso Torquemada is actually a Templar, so killing him would only make things worse. Before the movie came out, that's just a strong moment showing Ezio is using his best judgment on a very tough call. After the movie comes out, though, we come to realize that he's dead fucking wrong. The movie makes it very clear that Torquemada is a full-on Templar, and he just fooled Ezio. No question about it. Because of Ezio's gaffe in judgment, Torquemada would not be successfully assassinated until 1498, 7 years later, as briefly shown in Creed 2's Truth segments. Oopsie whoopsie, Ezio made a fucky wucky. The end. This game would later mysteriously go missing from the App Store. Leaping back over to the main game again, Creed 2 had 2 pieces of post-release content a few months following release. The first of which is Battle of Forlì. You'll never guess what happens in this one. Considering the base game's story barely acknowledged Forlì as more than a receptacle to drop in content that couldn't be shoved in the other cities, I feel like Ubisoft fully knew they were using this area primarily for DLC. That is the exact kind of thing Ubisoft would be willing to do. I mean, sometimes I feel like Ubisoft is the EA of companies that aren't as bad as EA. We pick right up during the huge time skip Creed 2 had near the end of the main campaign. The assassins have the apple they stole fair and square from Rodrigo Borgia, and they want somewhere they can keep it safe. So they go to Caterina Sforza in Forlì. Fortunately for Ezio, Caterina just had her husband murdered for flirting around with the Templars, so she's single and ready to mingle. She greets Ezio and Machiavelli and tells them all about how safe and secure Forlì will be to store the apple. Without hyperbole, Forlì immediately falls under siege. The 3 of them, backed up by Caterina's army, have to then fight their way back inside to get to the main stronghold. Essentially, you are on full babysitting duties, because Caterina is armored only in a dress, and Machiavelli is only armored also in a dress. Once secured, Caterina quickly realizes that she's down a couple of children. Enter the Orsi brothers. These purple pricks were the thugs Caterina hired as express husband removal, and now they've been hired by the Templars to steal her husband's map of the Codex pages, and also the Apple of Eden since it conveniently just showed up. It should go without saying here that Katarina proves herself to be the biggest gangsta in the franchise, and that includes the characters who are actually gangsters.
Or shall I slice your baby's necks ear to ear?
Bastardi! You think you can threaten me? I'll give you nothing! You want my children? Take them! I have the instrument to make more!
She doesn't actually want to lose her kids for some reason, so Ezio goes to save them. One of them, Katarina's kidnapped daughter, quickly proves herself to be the second biggest gangsta in the franchise.
This is absurd, you know. You'll never survive this. I'll be home in an hour. So you're basically just wasting your time and mine. I'm getting bored. Don't you have anything to do while I wait for you to die?
The other, Katarina's kidnapped son, just cries about it, which is fair, I suppose. I too cry whenever flamboyant men tell me I won't feel my legs when they're finished.
I don't want to be here anymore!
Let's go, Katarina. Show yourself. The apple and the map, or your kid's a cripple. Stop acting like...
With one Orsi bro down, the second tries to run for it, obviously forgetting that I have a gun. He still manages to stab Ezio unnoticed in his dying moments, and as Ezio passes out, a monk missing a finger fondles Ezio's sack. Ezio awakens with a beard and goes to ask the other local monks about this mysterious ball fondler. One of the monks recognizes Ezio as the guy who killed the atheist monk during the main story and tries to run away. Ezio gets the information out of him anyway. The monk Ezio is looking for is Savonarola. The end. Seriously, it just ends there. The climactic ending to this DLC is tackling a monk. This content is unsatisfyingly short and simple, which are adjectives I prefer to not be reminded about for absolutely no reason, okay? To be fair, it does give a bonus mission where you can repeatedly terrorize undeserving Forlì with Leonardo's flying machine too, but I honestly feel like this all should have been included as one whole with the other pack in the first place. The other pack, in the first place, Bonfire of the Vanities. Now that Ezio has Savonarola's name and location, he promptly goes to address the situation 9 years later. A known religious zealot has stolen the most powerful device known to the Italian Brotherhood, and Ezio waits 9 goddamn years before doing anything about it. He literally goes to fuck around in the Spanish Inquisition for a while, instead of focusing on the task at hand. Now sure, I have more than once procrastinated something or another, but never for a decade. Jesus, Ezio. In that ridiculous amount of time, Savonarola has turned Florence into a totalitarian theocracy, using the apple to sway 9 influential members of society under his leadership. Only 9, though. He too was just taking his merry time, apparently. Either way, Ezio gets to go on his own mini hunt for the 9, just like Altair did. Despite taking place in the same city the base game spent its first half in, it thankfully doesn't feel too repetitive, as the dev team has given an extra portion of Florence south of the base game's map, which is nice. Ezio's 9 targets are mostly stealth-focused, and are pretty challenging compared to the base game's targets, but are not quite as memorable due to being entirely unnamed individuals instead of specific historical figures. Each time you take one down, Paola and La Volpe lead groups of civilians to rise up against Savonarola in the most orderly fashion I've ever seen for a mob. Since you see these happen again and again, it does start to get a little silly. The mob finally gets riled up enough to grab Savvy, and a guard attempts to run off with the apple, obviously forgetting that I have a gun. Instead of letting Savonarola burn painfully to death, Ezio mercy kills him and gives the crowd an incredible speech, showing just how far his character arc has come along.
22 years ago, I stood where I stand now, and watched my loved ones die, betrayed by those I had called friends. We don't need anyone to tell us what to do. Not Savonarola, not the Medici. We are free to follow our own path.
A small number of people online try to heckle Ezio's popularity by just chalking it up to having 3 main games to win the audience over, but this moment right here shows just how incredible this character is before we've gotten to one of his main sequels yet. He and the other assassins head off, inspired by his words. The end. I'm not going to get too in detail on this next part due to difficulties I'm about to make clear, but did you know that Assassin's Creed 2 had a multiplayer spin-off? Also originally titled Assassin's Creed 2 Multiplayer, it was an iOS game with an overhead viewpoint. Players each looked like civilian crowd members and were tasked with stealthily taking down the other players. This should sound familiar to any fans of the older Assassin's Creed games, because aside from the camera angle, it's essentially how multiplayer functioned for a few of the upcoming games. Now, this whole game is difficult to get good footage of due to the fact that most people couldn't do great recordings of an iPod game 10 years ago, and it's just about as hard to get good information on. This game is no longer playable due to mysteriously going missing from the App Store, and so I'm left with something of a chicken and egg situation. Was this game made to test the concept for Brotherhood's multiplayer, or did Brotherhood get multiplayer after they realized this concept could work with the systems of a full game? I want to lean towards the first answer, but with the development timing of both this and Brotherhood, I can't really say for sure. If any Ubisoft developers from that time happen to see this, DM me please. Also, sorry about calling you EA earlier, that was just a joke. Kind of. Please help me learn the details I cannot find. This game would later mysteriously go missing from the App Store. At this point, we've definitely seen a few bizarre homes for Creed with the previous tie-in games, but this one is definitely the strangest. Did you know that you could play Assassin's Creed on Facebook? Well, you sort of could. Assassin's Creed Project Legacy was a browser game on Facebook building towards the release of Brotherhood. And I admit, this was one I actually did not play, even in all of my Creed fervor back in the day. See, my parents did not know that I was borrowing these games from a friend in high school, because I wasn't exactly supposed to be playing this kind of title. Not because of the violence, mind you, my father didn't give a fuck about that. We watched this movie when I was fairly young. My parents just didn't want me exposed to stuff with sex in it. They literally had me and my older sister walk out of the room when the movie Hero had a sex scene. The point at hand is that I didn't want my parents knowing about how much ass I was experiencing in ass. Since Facebook games always had the tendency to, Jesus Christ, do that, I never wanted to risk it in case it unraveled the whole secret conspiracy I had become a part of, so to speak. Much like the last segment, there's not an overwhelming supply of good footage of gameplay for Project Legacy itself. Based on what I can deduce, it appears to do a lot of the energy as a resource nonsense that Facebook games tend towards. Would you go the fuck away? What we do get from this is several pieces of lore building. Much of it for details around characters we will be seeing in Rome during Brotherhood. If I'm being frank, there's nothing terribly crucial in Project Legacy that needs to be gone over, considering you can read through the entirety of the plot in about 60 seconds on the Assassin's Creed wiki. I would like to illustrate that this is the first time we will see crystal skulls pop up in the franchise, though. They function as telephones, for reasons. This game would later mysteriously go missing from Facebook. I spent a lot of time in the last 2 episodes boasting about how good Creed 2 is, and basically how it will be more significant to me than, I don't know, holding my future children for the first time. So I've essentially praised that game more than most Protestants praise their God in a year. How then is anything supposed to top Assassin's Creed 2? Well, short answer, by being Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. Ass Bro was given a subtitle instead of a number when the developers decided to keep the same protagonist for a new entry. This will create a short period a few games from now where the numbering doesn't make sense anymore, but here I don't mind it so much. I typically think series name subtitle is a better naming scheme than series name number, because when done right, it tells us something about the story, which a number can't necessarily do. For example, Alice, Madness Returns, tells us that Alice's madness returns. It tells us what we need to know. Compare that to Dishonored 2, which tells us that, 2 people are Dishonored this time? Brotherhood works in the same way, both in terms of story and gameplay. As Creed 2's Assassin Brotherhood was really more of a social club, seeing as you could fit all of them in the same little tower. But Brotherhood's Brotherhood is about Ezio resolving that he's gonna need a better posse than that to sheriff this wild town. And most of the subplots revolve around the complexities of the alliances between everyone involved. Siblings, lovers, sibling lovers. It even connects thematically to adding the social aspect of a multiplayer mode. All in all, Brotherhood is just a good subtitle for this game. The title alone doesn't give the game its quality, of course. Fallout 76 could have been titled Fallout. You'll have the best orgasm of your life, and your father will finally be proud of you, but not because of the orgasm, that would be uncomfortable. And yet, it still would have shit the bed on release. While I had some gripes with Assassin's Creed 2, it didn't have any strong, damning faults that needed to be overcome. And yet, the developers still were clearly taking the time to consider what they could improve. The combat is made faster with the addition of a gameplay mechanic called kill streaks. Once Ezio has a fatality in a fight, he can immediately chain that into another automatic kill against most enemy types. And on and on. But you still have to be skillful about it. Other enemies will still be on the attack, so you need to aim your streaks for those about to strike, or you'll be interrupted and have to start over. Not only does this fix the tedium, it launches the combat right back up to something I was always wanting to get better at. I say was because I've definitely played this game enough to be a true hardcore gamer.
I am a god.
You can also buy a girthier sheath now, so if you want to permanently carry around a heavy weapon, you totally can. Ezio can also chuck these heavy weapons over long distances now. And though I doubt anyone was complaining about not having this feature in 2, it is straight badass to snipe someone with a fucking battle axe. Tools and equipment are also dramatically expanded upon, but without making anything completely irrelevant. Throwing knives quickly fell by the wayside in 2, since they couldn't one-hit kill later game enemies, like the hidden gun could, and could only multi-hit enemies in combat. Assassin Bro lets you hold down attack with knives to target up to 3 enemies at a time, giving you a ranged multi-kill for stealth as well. In 2, trying to use ranged weapons in a fight is just a quick way to learn the taste of a guard's boot, but yet again, Brotherhood has a fix. Now, the hidden gun is paired with standard weapons, and the throwing knives are paired with the short weapon. Hold attack to use the corresponding ranged move without putting away your melee weapon. This also gives a reason, other than personal preference, to pick between a sword or a dagger for combat. Of course, tweaks don't only apply to combat. 2 let you upgrade Monteriggioni, which was fun but fairly small scale. Brotherhood lets you renovate shops and historical locations all over Rome itself. Want to convert every available faction building into brothels? You can absolutely do that, you horny bastard. Even better, you don't have to go to an entirely different city than most of the campaign missions just to get your payment. Replacing one grumpy sister with a money box are banks, which are so much more secure. Sorry, cheerleader squid, you and I both know you'd spend it all on cocaine and Splatoon amiibos. Of course, that's all just the old, updated shit. Let's talk about the brand new shit Brotherhood brings to the table. Most of the side content you could do previously is back, like the Assassin Tombs, which carry over as layers of Romulus. Basically the same thing, except furries attack you in between free running. You can't just beat up wife cuckers anymore.
My husband carries on with wanton sluts.
But between VR training maps, guild side missions, unique Templar agent assassinations, on top of the usual extra assassination contracts, social group challenges, so on and so forth, there's more side content here than ever before. Want to free a chunk of Rome from its Borgia influence? Well, there are well-designed areas where you take out Borgia captains to burn down their tower. Each location is unique, with a difficulty assigned, and captains will react differently if they see you. Some stand and fight, and others flee to a safe room where you can't get in. Fuck the underground captain in particular. Lil pussy bitch boy, try and flee this gun! The most topical addition, considering the game's title, are your assassin recruits. Once you've freed those towers, you can help civilians who are getting harassed by guards around the city, and they'll pledge their allegiance to the double-ass inns. You can summon these guys anywhere throughout Rome to fight or assassinate guards, and when you do so, they will sometimes even give last rites to the fallen soldiers.
Your death was necessary.
Oh, sorry, I actually had you kill him so I could get some more ammo there, bud. You can also call down a tactical airstrike if you have enough assassins available at one time, wherein they shoot down every enemy in sight. You can also send them on missions around Europe, where they level up and earn extra money, and though customization is limited, you can also pick the color of their robes and choose how to upgrade their weapons and armor as you see fit. Each recruit has a unique name, and if you get one all the way to Assassin Master without causing their horrific deaths due to your own negligence, you even get to give them a graduation ceremony. It's all just a really fun way to give you the feeling that this is your own personal brotherhood. Of course, even though I consider this the best Assassin's Creed game personally, I can't let it off the hook without bitching about some of its flaws. Zeus himself could come down from Mount Olympus and offer me the eternal paradise of Elysium to make up for the shit I had to deal with in middle school, and I'd still probably whine about the toga being too breezy for my delicate testicles. First off, the historical plot is much less complicated than what we saw last time. A steady stream of cool moments and deepening the existing character relationships do make for a fun and well-told story, but at the end of the day, this plot can be summarized by saying, Cesare showed up and wrecked your shit, so you go and wreck Cesare's shit. Ezio also has the least character arc out of his trilogy in this game. There's not really growth, it's more of a horizontal line. He starts out the most badass and successful assassin in Italy, and he ends the most badass and successful assassin in Italy. Garlic bread has a more dynamic character arc passing through my digestive system. Another sore point? Optional objectives. I don't hate the concept of additional mission constraints on how Ezio canonically completed each memory. The execution is simply all over the place. Some objectives are insultingly easy. One mission says to send mercenaries into a fight, and if you go in a straight line to your objective, you see a group of mercenaries and then a group of guards for them to fight. Other missions spike difficulty through the roof. One says to take no damage, and you get jumped by like a billion furries at once. I succeeded at that one. But not all of them. Any of the ones that want you to complete a whole platforming tomb in 8 minutes should go fillet a bastard sword. A few smaller gripes. Some abilities and equipment do get to be kind of OP in this game, most blatantly the crossbow. It locks on so fast you can high noon most guards before they finish detecting you. It one-hit kills most everyone, and it's quieter than the gun, so it gives no notoriety at all. As if that weren't all enough, it's fairly cheap, so you can afford it very early in the game, if you didn't spend all your cash on hookers. Ezio is really only going to be overpowered outside of missions with tighter constraints, where it's fun to be such a badass killer, but I know that will be a sticking point for some of you stickier individuals. Please, wash your hands, you filthy animals. Also, while I love the music in this game, sometimes it gets intense for absolutely no reason. Here, I was just trying to walk along to my destination between memories. Hey, I'm talking here! As always, I've saved the story for last. Desmond and crew are en route to some new hideout. Desi's been put in the Animus to make use of the road time. They try to skip to the good parts, and the Animus rejects them, even though they should have known this would happen when it did the same thing at the start of the original game. They jump earlier in time to Ezio, still in the vault, where he sees the Pope apparently stripped and fled. The floor slurps up the Pope's stick, probably because it knows Ezio would use levitation for sex purposes, and Ezio and Mario escape Rome back to Monteregione. His life's goal fulfilled, Ezio finally gets to relax. He helps out the villa's citizens with minor tasks like catching a horse, scheduling a hookup with a stranger, and testing out the villa's new cannon defenses. That one seems a little too specific for my liking. He tells the other assassins what went down, and finally gets to bang that hot MILF Katerina. Then everything goes to shit. Cannonballs are firing right through the houses, everything's exploding, there's a goddamn army right there! Thanks to the element of surprise, this previously unseen sleazebag and his douche brigade have MILF-napped Katerina and stolen the Apple of Eden from Mario, who gets some interior skull redecorating. Ezio gets triple sniped, and despite now having at least double the number of body holes a man should possess, manages to evacuate the rest of his family to safety. He tries to ride on, but based on the landscape makes it about 30 yards away before passing out in the middle of the road. Desmond and crew arrive to their destination, modern-day Monteriggioni. Des and Lucy have to do a parkour sequence to unlock everything from inside, where his bleeding effect symptoms are getting more frequent, meaning he probably should have said something after he fucked his great-grandmother, but they do successfully set up shop in the Armor of Altair chamber. They also find mysterious numbers by the door, but that's for later. From here you can actually exit or re-enter the Animus at will for the rest of the historical plot, and I think this is a good compromise for any player's opinion on the modern day. If you don't like the modern stuff, you can skip it, but I recommend not to here. As the plot progresses, the characters get proper time for depth, something Sean and Rebecca were lacking last time.
Hey, what's the matter you out there?
That's racist.
You're racist. So how's it feel letting the lady do all the work?
She's no lady.
Hey!
Desmond can also leave the bunker to explore the outside world, but only for a few minutes at a time and under the cover of the night. Throughout modernized Villa Auditore, you can find a handful of relics from the last game, such as the cape Lorenzo de' Medici gave Ezio, Mario's sword, and Mommy Maria's feather box, which is inexplicably up on the roof. Who put that there? How has it survived the weather so long? I'm confused. Don't spend too long outside though. Abstergo's looking for you, and if that timer runs down... Oh, nothing happens. That is less scary than I was expecting. Back to the past, Ezio wakes up bandaged in Rome right at the turn of the 16th century. He has been mysteriously dropped off by someone who has left him the sharpest robes in the entire series. God damn, this outfit is dope. Rome is in rough shape. Machiavelli explains to Ezio that Cesare Borgia, Rodrigo's son, is the dickwaffle behind the turmoil. Businesses are closed left and right. The mercenaries are tied up in extended war against French troops in the Roman countryside, and the other two guilds won't play nice with the assassins anymore. Things are so bad that one of your very first tasks is to take out a rapist executioner, which is generally a sign that something has gone wrong. The head courtesan gets killed in a hostage situation, but fortunately, Claudia and Maria show up to run the hookers, which Ezio finds uncomfortable. The thieves, under La Volpe's discretion, are keeping their distance because they think Machiavelli is in bed with the Borgias. Spoiler alert, he's not. But to anyone with a historical background, this will actually seem plausible in the uncertainty of the moment, due to Machiavelli's real-life connection to the Borgias. Most of the story is the hunting and killing of conspirators that we've come to expect, but the character moments are what really shine. Ezio discovers Cesare is diddling his sister Lucrezia, with the implication that she's also diddling Daddy Rodrigo too, and it gets weirder from there, which is saying something, since it started with incest. Lucrezia is jealous because she, incorrectly, thinks Cesare diddled Caterina. So, she diddles an actor who plays Jesus, and Cesare gets jealous of Jesus diddling his sister, so he tries to have Jesus killed. Game of Thrones ain't nothing. Assassin's Creed got that wild shit. It ain't all sister porking though. Ezio rescues Caterina, who breaks his heart just a little, revealing she only slept with him politically. It's actually how Cheney got to be Bush's vice president, fun fact. Ezio also keeps La Volpe and Machiavelli from a messy end. Claudia proves herself to be a capable badass and eventually joins the assassins. Machiavelli reveals that everything was a test of character for Ezio, and Ezio is made the lead assassin. And oh yeah, some Templars die along the way. Good stuff. Before I bring you to climax, there are a few significant memory types to discuss. I already mentioned the furry zones, known as the Lairs of Romulus. They also have a special set of unbreakable armor in their possession. The Armor of Brutus, famous for turning Caesar... Oh my god, that outfit is no good. Hold on. Ah, much better. There are also the Christina memories. These are memories Ezio had repressed from back during the events of Creed 2, involving Christina Vespucci from the beginning of the game, and each one is triggered by a sight around Rome reminding him of her. We see their initial meeting, where he flubbed his intro like the awkward teen he is. He follows her home, which is typically uncouth, but he keeps her from being Vieri-lated, so she forgives him. She helps Ezio give his executed family members a proper send-off, but really only as moral support, because she goes nowhere near the bodies, but still won't let Ezio murder any guards. Well, technically this isn't murder, Christina. She leaves him heartbroken when she becomes engaged to another man, whom Ezio immediately has to save, and later struggles to recognize Ezio under a Carnevale mask, even though he's wearing the same outfit she's seen him in repeatedly by this point. Christina is tragically killed during the bonfire of the Vanities, where she confesses that she still loved him for all of these years. You know, while Ezio was elsewhere, fucking the horse lady. These missions shed interesting light on Ezio's mentality throughout these last two games, particularly seeing how close these memories stick to ones we've played, and set up some threads Revelation's plot will thrust into heavily. Returning to the past, that is the present past but not the past past anymore, Ezio stumbles upon an anachronistic modern-day shipping box, which never gets explained, where he discovers Leonardo da Vinci has been forced into building war machines for Cesare. These machines are all based on actual sketches the real da Vinci made. There's a machine gun, a battle boat, a tank, and another flying machine, but this time with a madre fucking cannon attached. Sadly, he never built his design for the one that's basically just a lawnmower for human shins. The truth also returns, only instead of symbols, it's now holes in the Animus you can physically inhabit, which is foreshadowing. There are only 10 of them this time, but don't think the puzzles have gotten any easier. They shed light on more of Abstergo's ongoing conspiracy, from using capitalism and class divide as more subtle reins of control, to setting up George W.'s presidency. And yes, they are still creepy.
I know you are there. I want to go home. Home. Please. I need you. Don't leave me here in the dark.
I don't know what the particulars of this are, but it looks like your cable is programmed to have some kind of effect on our bodies.
1 second, my supervisor has just come over. She says I should transfer your call. Have an ecstatic day with Comstatic.
Hello. I have been briefed on your problem. A technician is on his way.
Daddy, there's been a strain at the door. He's hitting the door real hard.
Have a good day, Mr. Jameson.
This time the video file isn't even a video, but a program, revealing that Subject 16's mind is still alive inside the Animus. 16 foreshadows this game's ending, and even sets up some plot threads that the series is going to outright forget for a long time.
Find Eve. The key. Her DNA. The son. Your son.
Yeah, that stuff's going to be delayed. When all is said and done, Ezio has kneecapped Cesare's armies, funds, and support. So Rodrigo tries to poison Cesare, but Cesare finds out and counter-poisons Rodrigo to death. Ezio gets the apple back. We actually get to use it in gameplay this time, and Cesare is arrested and taken away. The apple shows Ezio that Cesare is going to keep on conquering, so Ezio goes to Cesare's big comeback tour and Humpty Dumpty's the sister fucker to death. With these memories completed, Desmond and co. are finally able to figure out where Ezio eventually hid his Apple of Eden, tunnels under the Colosseum, leading to an Isu vault. Desmond has to parkour his way around some pretty blue walls. All the while, another Isu voice is speaking in detail about the disappearance of the first Civ from historical records, the Isu Sixth Sense, and crossbreeding with human loins. This is not Minerva from the last game. This is Juno, who we will discover to be quite a problem. She freezes time for the other 3 assassins, turns Desmond to Lucy, and gets the point across. Desmond collapses into a coma, and 2 new voices have to put Desmond back into the Animus before his shattered psyche falls apart under its own weight. The end. Eagle-visioned viewers may have noticed that I only spoke in depth about the single-player mode of Assassin Bro. That was intentional. Who knows, maybe next time there's going to be a big, special episode of A Brief and Vulgar History of Assassin's Creed?